Your local election headquarters. This is The Insiders with Dave Price.
What is ahead for Iowa's governor as she prepares for what will be her 6th year on the job? Since the summer, she has limited official public appearances and interviews with Iowa media, and that's largely continued since that resounding re-election campaign win a month ago. Des Moines businesswoman Deidre DeGier lost to Reynolds by more than 226,000 votes. That's about 7 times more than Fred Hubble lost to Reynolds 4 years earlier. What do you think's happened to your party in this state?
What party? That's the biggest problem. The Democratic Party really needs to reform and rebuild. This last election, we didn't have a coordinated campaign that went statewide. The state party leadership raised just enough money to keep the staff paid and keep the lights on. But there was no coordinated campaign like we've had in the past. And that's always the thing that tips in our favor whenever it came to election time. Because, Dave, the election registration is about the same for Democrats and Republicans. But if you look at the way the legislature is going to convene, we don't look like we have any Democrats here in the state of Iowa. And that's because we didn't have a robust campaign. Nationally, Democrats did well. Here, we did nothing.
So those things that are lacking, then, how did that happen? Where did things go sideways?
Well, leadership has to raise money. You have to raise money to support a robust campaign. The other thing, and to give them a little bit of deference, we don't have a Tom Harkin on the ballot anymore. And he was somebody who would come in and raise substantial amounts of money to help out the Democratic Party. Also, if we lose the caucuses, that's a big hurt to the Democratic Party as well, because we raised a lot of money from the caucuses. So we have to find a way to raise money differently than we have in the past. It's hard work, but we have to do it if we're going to be able to be competitive in the state of Iowa.
Yeah, the Democratic Party, David, I think is the weakest it's been in my lifetime, and I'm not a spring chicken anymore. So, it's remarkable. The reason why Tom's right, the registrations aren't that out of whack in terms of Iowa being a purple state. The problem is, if you look at the outcome of this last election, the Democrats didn't turn their people out. They didn't vote. How are you going to win elections if you don't vote? And you do that through candidates and organization. The Democrats in Iowa never recovered from Tom Harkin deciding not to run again. They haven't had a strong leader helping build that party since that time. I don't think you build it from the top down. I think the Democrats have to do a couple of things. One, they have to recruit really good candidates. That's critical. And secondly, they got to figure out a way to appeal in rural areas, not just urban areas. Iowa's still significantly a rural state. And what that means is they got to move more to the middle, particularly on cultural issues, than they've been comfortable doing. You can't be woke and get votes in rural Iowa, and that's what the Democrats are.
You said this hadn't happened in your lifetime. Chuck Grassley was the one who pointed this out before it happened, but it was the 1954 election. The results of that election.
Was that his first campaign for Senate?
Almost, no. Well, almost as was for the State House.
Yeah, it was.
But before you had a Republican
clean
sweep of the entire state. So is it an issues thing? Where is you talked about the rural areas. Well, as you well know, as a rural guy, a lot of those folks, the younger people have moved out of there. So connecting with those who remain, that's going to be tough though, right?
Yeah, but Tom Harkin always won in a lot of the rural areas. Tom Vilsack won in a lot of the rural areas because they went there and talked about their issues. That's one. But two is culturally, there's no fit between the Democratic Party and the rural parts of Iowa anymore.
But what about statewide? Okay, so that part makes sense, but statewide, Tom, you lose Tom Miller, you lose Mike Fitzgerald. I mean, how do you explain the statewide losses? So to Doug's point, it makes a lot of sense for where the party's gone wrong in those smaller communities, but statewide, it went south too.
Well, you know, I think that we have 10 really strong counties here in the state of Iowa, and we have to win all 10 of those counties. We haven't been doing that. Look at the statewide totals. We were like, if we got 4 or 6, we need to get all 10. So we start our base there. And if you can build in the top 10 counties, that's the first step. Then if you have more money and more organization, you try to go into the other 90 counties to try to turn out the vote. But really, the population centers right now are the places where the Democratic Party needs to do well, and we're not.
Yeah, but
that's where you start.
But Tom, look at even the results in Polk County. Rick Olson on the east side of Des Moines had a tough race. Why? Because the working class voter has gone to the Republicans. The Democrats have lost them because they don't talk their language. Culturally, they're not comfortable with them on a number of issues. And the Democrats don't even seem to care about that. You can't just be the party of the elite and win an election.
You had been interested a couple of years back in being state party chair, was that right?
Right. And that was usually...
Are you again?
Maybe. But here's my question, though. I mean, what you talked about with regard to Rick Olson was interesting because the Republicans put a ton of money into his race. And they really forced us to put money into that race to make sure that he stayed in that seat. You're right.
That's on the east side.
No, but there was like $1 million spent in that race. Go check it out. It was amazing. That's why it got close. But he is right. We don't appeal to the issues that we need to appeal to working families. The average income for a family here in Iowa is $44,000. That means a lot of people are making less than that. Did you hear the Democrats talking about that? About living wages and trying to make sure that people are able to earn a decent living for their families? We didn't. And then the gap between men and women is $15,000. Do we ever talk about that? No. What issues were we talking about? Something that has to do with a coastal issue. You know, that's what we were usually raising. But Doug's right. We're not dealing with the middle of the road. We should be a Democratic Party that addresses that.
And here's the irony, is the places that need government help more than any others are the ones that are most Republican. In other words, what I'm saying, in rural Iowa, for example, it's a commodity-based economy, which gives incentives to scale. And so more and more people leave there, and the people that remain have lower and lower incomes. They need a government solution to a lot of these. The market's not going to give them the solution they need. And value-added agriculture, ethanol, all these sorts of things are government-sponsored. So they're actually voting more Republican, which believe in less government control. It's such an obvious layup to me that the Democratic Party ought to have a plan on what you do to help rural Iowa succeed. Right. How you help the working class, because they need government help. The rich don't.
So you talked about where the Democrats have gone wrong. Well, where has your party gone right? Because there's Republican success all over the place.
And I think that's the flip side of this. Well, the Democratic Party is atrophied. The Republican Party is stronger in Iowa than ever. I give a lot of the credit to Jeff Kaufman, who's the party chair. Jeff and I don't agree on every issue, but Jeff is a guy who understands the importance of organization, and particularly he understands the importance of appealing to working class voters, because he knows Republicans generally have the business community. What they don't historically have are the working class, and you marry those two together, you win elections. Jeff understands that. He's done a great job.
So Kim Reynolds got reelected easily. What do you expect from her in 2023?
Well, she won an overwhelming win, and as we talked about earlier, Iowa's still relatively competitive when it comes to registration. So the fact that she won by 19 points and brought all those people with her is really remarkable. You got to hats off to her. So what will likely happen is when you win something as a politician, and you usually continue to do the same thing. So I wouldn't expect a lot of changes. In fact, I think what she'll do is double down on things like school choice. She talks about taxes, but I don't know what more you could do on taxes right now, because they've got triggers in place right now the way it is. So I think you'll see more of the same, and I think she'll raise her national profile. She's the head of the Republican Governors Association. I think she's sort of seen as a rising star. I think you'll see more of her on the national stage.
What does she do with that?
With that, I think she eventually, if the Republicans win the presidency in 24, which, depending on who they nominate, is a decent bet, she'll become a cabinet secretary.
Tom, what do you expect from the governor next year?
Not a great deal. One thing I think that's going to happen next year is that unemployment rate's going to go up. And I think that our leaders are going to have to start to address that issue. Hopefully she's ready to do that rather than just point fingers at Biden, because we're going to have to start to address that. It's going to be a natural part of what we're going through right now from the economy standpoint. But if I was governor of Iowa, I'd also look at those rural districts. We continue to lose population in all those areas. Why don't we form a blue ribbon committee to look at what can be done to reinvigorate those areas and through state support? Because our top 10 counties are growing without any difficulty. It's just a natural growth because things are happening there. But we need to do things to preserve the rest of the state of Iowa, and we're not doing that right now. And I don't see her as having that type of vision.
Well, even the problem for the urban areas, Tom, they've grown by extracting people from rural Iowa to urban Iowa. That's about done. I mean, we've pretty
rather than people coming from out of state.
You got to come from out of state to grow this state, and I don't see where we've got a plan to do that. I think we need that. But fundamentally, I think you need focus. And the most important thing that I'm concerned about for Iowa in the future is the fact that our public education system has really fallen down. And we historically have always been number one in the country, or aspired to be. What are we now, 28th, 29th?
Next, improving Iowa by leaning into its strength.